I think one of the most important things that occurred in Lac-Qui-Parle County was the coming of the telephone that allowed for communication not only between just our local towns, but the rest of the state and the country.
I remember my grandparents talking about their old operated assisted phones and party lines.
Number, please. I wish to speak to Aunt Louise. Now I wish to speak very confidentially, if you please. Aunt Louise, this is your niece Patrice. Larry's been a problem child. He's in a squeeze. He stole a bottle of brandy. Oh me, oh my, he has embarrassed me. Just heard a click. Is there someone on this line? Get off this line, you rubberneck. This line is mine.
One ringy-dingy, two ringy-dingy.
Hello?
Is this the party to whom I am speaking?
Who are you calling?
Well, to whom am I speaking?
You don't know who you called?
I called the person to whom I am speaking. Your name, sir.
Oh, good grief. I'm Lucius Clark.
Good afternoon, Lucius Clark. How can I help you?
You called me?
Yes, I did. Are you important?
What do you mean, am I important?
Are you famous? Did you do anything important?
Do you consider starting a telephone company important?
Oh, yes, I do. If there wasn't a telephone company, I wouldn't have my job. What did you do that was so important?
I was one of the founders of the Bellingham Telephone Company. We started in 1904 with 36 customers. We grew to have subscribers from Bellingham to Lewisburg to near Ortonville and south beyond Nassau. My family owned the Bellingham Telephone Company through the 1930s. The Depression years were extremely difficult. Farmers weren't getting crops, that meant that they couldn't pay for phone service. And with fewer and fewer subscribers, the phone company fell into a state of disrepair. Finally, in 1946, we sold the company to Lee and Ray Carpenter.
Oh, I remember them. Lee Carpenter was the night operator while he was in high school. He would sleep with the headphones on so that he could take a call at any time of the night. He earned $11 a week. Can you imagine sleeping with headphones on all night for $11 a week?
The Carpenters and their mother, Laura, owned the Bellingham Telephone Company until they sold it to Farmers Mutual Telephone Company in 1955. Farmers Mutual was also founded in 1904. It, too, suffered during the Depression. They lost subscribers because the farmers couldn't afford the $1 a month service charge. The company was in disarray and service was poor, but farmers wanted telephone service. In 1932, Oscar Valla, Johnny Bordson, Willie Moen, and Selford Moen formed their own telephone service by stringing wires on their barbed wire fences. That system worked well, though Farmers Mutual was not too happy about it. Selford Moen and others wanted a new telephone company. One of them was a close friend of Hubert Humphrey. Humphrey guided them on the steps to form a new telephone company. Humphrey helped them get a loan through the REC, the first phone company in the United States to do so. They decided to get rid of the old Farmers Mutual Company, which turned out to be a challenge because when a meeting was called, there was never a quorum. But finally, they were able to accomplish it. The company was then reorganized and incorporated in 1951 as Farmers Mutual Telephone Company, Cerro Gordo, with the director signing personal notes for $7,000 to fund the company and keep it solvent in its early years. With a $100,000 loan Farmers Mutual received from REC, it was able to put in a dial phone party line system.
What? What about my job? They took away my job?
Operators were still used, but not for every call. After Farmers Mutual bought the Bellingham Telephone Company, it built a new office building in Bellingham in 1960 at a cost of $20,000. You could probably get a job there. Marietta was added to Farmers Mutual in 1958. The next year, Farmers Mutual did more upgrades, this time burying the lines, making it one of the first underground systems in Minnesota.
That seems like a lot of firsts.
It is. Farmers Mutual is a leader in the industry. It has always been an innovator, bringing broadband to Lac La Prairie County when most of the state was still just talking about it. I heard that in 2019 it received an award for bringing gigabit broadband speed to Lac La Prairie County. What on earth is gigabit? And what is broadband?
I had no idea. Mr. Clark, I am so glad you called me. This was an interesting conversation.
Excuse me, you called me?
I have to go now. My phone is ringing. Oh, good afternoon, Ethel. How are you today? Oh, you want to place a call? Who do you want to call? Really? Did you hear that her husband just bought one of those newfangled automobiles? You hadn't. He broke his arm the first time he tried to crank it. Those things are dangerous. They're never going to last. Waste of money. Fine. I'll place your call.
It looks like Bellingham Telephone Company is adding more lines, this time between Bellingham and Marietta.
That'll be nice. Then I can call my niece in Marietta.
1 ringy-dingy, 2 ringy-dingy, long ringy-dingy.
What are you doing? That's not our number. Ours is long and a short, not 2 shorts and a long.
I know. It's Ethel's. I'm going to see what she's up to. Hush now.
Oh, do you see? Look at that train. Look there. It's an Arctic tui. That is just never found in Lac La Prairie. Look.
Excuse me. Who are you?
My name is May Peterson. I'm fascinated with birds. My husband and I own Peterson's drugstore in Madison. We met while we were pharmacists in Ortonville and bought the drugstore in Madison in 1905. Poor Charlie died in 1938. I have discovered 286 different birds, and I've banded over 15,000. Many of the birds that I have found were in Salt Lake near Marietta. It's because of me that we are recognized by the National Audubon Society. It was in 1924 that I met Dr. Thomas Roberts, the curator of the University of Minnesota's Museum of Natural History. He was working on a diorama of prairie habitat and was looking for nesting sites of western Minnesota prairie birds. That really piqued my interest in the birds, and I became somewhat of an expert on my own in that area. If I can boast a little bit more, one of my sons, Charles Jr., is considered the godfather of historic preservation. He was an architect who worked for the National Park Service. His contributions were essential to show how old buildings should be documented.
We have birding weekend every April, and it is because of May Peterson's work. Birders from all over the country and sometimes other countries come here to look for birds.
One of the main reasons we have so many different types of birds is Salt Lake.
Wait a minute. We have a salt lake? Like a sea?
Well, we were covered entirely with water thousands of years ago, It was called Lake Agassiz. In fact, you can still see evidence of the lake in gravel pits in the Lackaparow County, where fossilized shells and shark teeth are very abundant.
Shark's teeth? There were never any sharks here. Come on, you're pulling my leg.
No, I'm serious. There were sharks, although not as large as the present-day sharks. Some other unique things about Lackaparow County is they have cactus and the prairie lady slipper.
We are not a desert, so it is weird that cactus do grow here. But I've seen them at Plover Prairie, an area of preserved prairie north of Bellingham. I've seen the lady slipper too, but you have to look closely in the tall grass during the month of May. The cactus are all over, right along the gravel road on the west side of the Plover Prairie.
I'm enjoying our walk through history. We've met J.F. Jacobson, talked a bit about Theodore Slen, but Dawson has its own claim to fame in the political world. Theodore Christensen.
I see that name every time I drive to Appleton on Highway 119. Theodore Christensen, Memorial Highway. How did he get so famous?
Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, Theodore Christensen.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Theodore Christensen. I'm running for the United States Senate. I want you to know that I am a candidate of all the people, not of any group or faction. I have no affiliations or alliances with any other candidate, and I shall write my own platform. I will discuss principles, not personalities. It is not my personal ambition and interest that counts, but the public interest. I am a Republican and quite conservative. I believe in hard work. I was raised in Lackaparow County and attended a rural school near Lackaparow Village. I loved learning. I wanted to go to high school, so I worked summers to earn the money to go. I graduated from Dawson High School and went to the University of Minnesota. After graduating from college, I was principal at Robbinsdale Public School. I used the money from that job to attend the University of Minnesota Law School, from which I graduated in 1909. I also met my wife, Ruth Donaldson, who was an English teacher while I was a principal. After graduation from law school, we moved back to Dawson, and I opened a law practice. But I also had a passion for writing and news, so I bought the Dawson Sentinel in 1909 and was its editor until 1925. During that time, I presided over the Dawson City Council for a couple of years and served in the Minnesota State House of Representatives from 1915 to 1925. During my tenure in the Minnesota House of Representatives, I sponsored a bill to blend 10% alcohol with gasoline. It took a few years for something like that to pass, I believe about 90 years. One of the reasons I sold the newspaper is because I became the 21st governor of the state of Minnesota in 1925, a position I held until 1931. While I was governor, I created the Department of Administration and Finance and cut millions from our state budget. I believe that I am the person you should elect as your next senator.
So, did you win?
I did not, but I served in the United States House of Representatives from 1933 to 1937. My wife died in 1944, and I married Mrs. Mamie Bundy of Chicago in 1946. We often traveled back to Dawson.
Theodore Christensen was in Dawson in 1948, coming back from a dinner when his car overheated. His wife walked to a nearby farm to get assistance because by then Ted was having some serious heart issues. While she was gone, he felt a heart attack coming on and drove the car to the farm. He honked the horn to get their attention. He told his wife he was dying and that he felt no pain. He died a few minutes later. Mr. Christensen was in Congress during some of our county's most difficult times. There was a depression and a severe drought occurring at the same time.
Depression years were a hard time. It was so serious that our banks in our county had closed. The government declared a bank holiday in 1933 to try to simmer things down a bit. With all that, there was no way for businesses to cash checks and no way for citizens to get cash if they received payment in cash.
Bellingham tried to solve that dilemma by having the businesses agree to take produce checks for payment. Since there was no way to make change, the businesses agreed to give tokens as change and accept tokens as payment. Luckily, that didn't have to go on for too long before a couple of banks reopened.
That helped with one problem, but not with a major one, failing crops and no income. The government stepped in with the Work Progress Program designed to put men to work on government projects. Our towns benefited from the WPA. Our swimming pools were built, schools were remodeled, sidewalks were built, water systems improved, city parks were developed, and bridges built, including the Milan Bridge that was torn down a couple of years ago and has now been rebuilt.
What about the people like me who weren't used to physical labor? Did they have to do that kind of work if they wanted a job?
Workers were placed in librarians in schools. Some restored damaged books, bound books, promoted creativity through programs for the artists, writers, actors, filmmakers, musicians, and dancers were employed. One project had almost 400 artists locating designs from around the country and then drew images of those objects.
What were those designs used for?
I have no idea, but they sure were busy. There were over 2,500 murals painted around the period. 17,700 pieces of sculpture were installed in buildings nationwide. 6,600 authors and journalists chronicalized the landscape of America. So somewhere there would have been a job for you.